Alright then guys, what is up? I'm AsgardsChamp. This is my first impressions video for Mount & Blade Bannerlord. Now, I say it's a first impression, it's not really. I did play the game for around 20 hours or so when it first released. However, I had a lot of problems, technically speaking. I don't have the best system in the world, but it's definitely not the worst either. And it should have been able to run this game, however I was struggling to get any frames, even on like the lowest graphic settings. Now, the 20 hours that I did put into it were a struggle, and I did manage to come up with some workarounds to get it to run at least to a point where I could play, but it was so bad that I had to stop. However, that being said, I did realise at that point that this is going to be a great game, something that I want to keep an eye on, and something I will be checking out in the future. So now we're about 6 or 7 months ahead, since then. So here we are. I'm going to check the game out again, see if it runs on my system any better, and give it a proper go. There'll be people out there who haven't seen the game, so you might be watching this thinking, do I want to get this game? Do I want to play it? Well, I've got your back as well. I'm going to go through some of the mechanics, some of the different features of the game and so on, and come up to some sort of conclusion at the end. So just before we get started with this re-impressions video, just want to mention down in the description below there's links to my social media. So far I've been covering kind of Total War content, I've been doing a few Let's Plays, however thinking of branching out into kind of other strategy games, historical themed games. That's going to be the kind of content I want to make on this channel. So give us a follow down there on the social media, subscribe if you like as well if that's the kind of content you want to see. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The main reason I stopped playing this game originally when it was first launched was because it became so buggy and so unplayable. Really low frame rates, crashing all the time, that kind of thing, that I just got a bit sick of it. I realised this was a game that I was definitely going to enjoy. The gameplay is awesome. I played Warband quite a bit as well, so I knew what I was getting myself in for. However, just completely unplayable at that time. So the main thing I want to see from this is if it's now playable, if I can up the graphic settings a little bit and still play it. From making this video, I can say that yes, I can. I've been able to play it on higher settings and record at the same time as well, which is a bit more taxing on the system. Been able to do all of that just fine, so that's definitely a good sign and a good change. So something else I wanted to see by making this video was if the AI kind of acted a bit smarter. One thing that used to bug me when I first started playing it, for example, was the shield wall formation with the infantry. They never seemed to really act like a shield wall. They stayed spaced apart from each other. They're still getting hit by arrows, that kind of thing. You know, there should be tightly knit shields over the heads, that kind of thing. And safe to say that that has been improved. I believe I read in some of the patch notes that that was the case as well. Happy to announce that that works nicely now. So that was great to see. I think just overall, the AI in general seemed to be a bit smarter. So I played a few custom battles, as you'll see in a little while, where I was playing as a sergeant, so I didn't have control over the troops. However, they seemed to act quite cleverly, using circle formations, protecting the archers, cavalry screening them, that kind of thing. It seemed to work. Not perfect by any means, but it is an early access game, we do have to remember that. And it works well enough for now, at least. With all that said, however, things being fixed and so on, the game is still quite buggy. I've noticed that it's not very performant, and while I've not had any crashes while I've been playing it this time, definitely been some strange bugs, as you can see again in the background. With this one, it took me a while to figure out sort of how to fix it. Looked online, I wasn't the only one who's had this issue. It looks like I had to kind of restart the game and download new drivers for my graphics card, which, to be fair, something I probably should be doing anyway. However, not an ideal experience, I guess. So the next thing I decided to do was to start a new campaign. So my thinking being, I wanted to see if we had any crashes during the campaign, how it ran, if it was buggy and so on. I guess we'll get to the conclusion at the end of this. But the first thing you do when starting a new campaign is to create a new character. So when creating a new character, the first thing you have to do is to choose their culture. Each of these cultures have kind of different bonuses. You can see there at the bottom. This one gives forests give 10% less speed penalties to parties. So there's various bonuses for depending on which culture you start as. I went with the Vlandians on this one, simply because the 20% more upgrade XP to troops from battles seems quite OP, to be honest. I thought I'll give that one a try. So the character creation screen was great actually. I've got it on kind of lowest graphics settings here, just to make sure that this video performs nicely. But you can still see the graphics are nice. There's lots of different customization options when creating your character in terms of you know, how they look and so on. It's quite immersive, it's good. It means, you know, gives a lot of choice, lots of replayability, that kind of thing. So even though this character's Vlandian, the kind of the quintessential European knights sort of faction, I didn't go with that kind of theme at all. He looks more like a Viking. I'm AsgardsChamp after all, so there you go. You are then prompted with a few questions about your kind of background. These are, as you can see here, choosing your family. You then get to choose sort of what you did as a child, what you did as a teen, what you do as an adult, and that kind of thing. And this all amounts to choosing the starting skills for your character. So you get to kind of decide on your play style early on. I've gone with more of an archer. I was kind of going for like a horseback archer, but it allows you to create any kind of play style that you want right off the bat. So I'm going to be brutally honest here, the tutorial, while informative, is so dull. It took about 20 minutes to get through, and it was probably the most boring thing I've ever done. Tutorials in games aren't generally the best and most exciting things, however this was, I don't know if it's because I've done it before, maybe. However, I tried to put myself in the shoes of someone who's coming to this for the first time. Once you kind of pick up one of the ranged weapons or one of the hand-to-hand weapons, once you've ridden the horse a little bit, you figure out exactly how the game works, and it doesn't take long. The upside to the tutorial, I think, is if you've not played a Mount and Blade game before and you do the combat tutorials against the sort of easy and then veteran combatant, that could be quite useful because it gets used to, I guess, the way the combat system works in this. It is a little bit unique among other games. That's the only positive I could find for this, really, if I'm being totally honest. I was bored out of my mind doing this, and I couldn't wait to get into the game. So then once you've finished that part of the tutorial, you are thrust onto the main campaign map, where you're given various instructions via a text box which pops up. You're given a little quest. There's a little bit of a story that goes along with it. This was much less boring and much less dull than the kind of combat tutorial that you do before it. I kind of wish that they could have skipped all of that combat tutorial that came before and jumped straight into this and just taught you the mechanics through this part of the game here. You fight a few battles, so there's no reason why they couldn't have set up a few scenarios where you can learn how to use a sword, a spear, a bow, ride a horse, that kind of thing. Yeah, it seemed to drag on a bit too long for me. But then even doing these tutorial missions here, you're kind of following a little quest line, and even then I found quite a few bugs which really spoiled it for me, to be honest. I feel like a new player coming in and playing this for the first time, it's not a good representation for the game. This game's awesome, and it can be so good. Bugs aside, again, I have to remind myself it is an early access game. You have to expect bugs with that. So that's it then. After the tutorial, you kind of thrust out into the world. You've got to make up your own mind now as to what you want to do. Luckily in this game you are given a couple of quests initially. That is required, I would say, and good that they've done that. Again, this was there in the launch of early access. However, just to comment on it for any new players who might be watching, follow these quests. It gives you something to do initially while you figure out the game. My main concern with the kind of tutorial and then getting thrust into this part of the game is that the tutorial doesn't do anything to tell you how a lot of the mechanics work, such as trading, that kind of thing, starting a kingdom, becoming a lord, owning property, owning land. It doesn't teach you any of that. I learned a lot of that just by going on YouTube and finding other videos. Tends to be quite a common theme in gaming these days. Tutorials aren't very fleshed out. I wish there'd have been a little bit more in this, but it's not the end of the world. It is a sandbox game after all, and I do quite like it when games are light on the information, which allows you to kind of experiment and figure things out. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In this case, however, this game is so vast and there's so much to do. A little nudge in the right direction might have been nice. But yeah, overall I did feel a little bit lost at this point. And I remember feeling like this last time I played it as well. However, I was a bit more focused on the performance issues I was having at that time. Whereas now I'm playing it and I'm kind of thinking, well, okay, what should I do now? I don't know. I guess I'll follow these quests and let's see where they go. So I started doing that, played it for maybe another hour or so, managed to complete most of one of these quests, and I was having fun doing it, so I guess that's the main thing. It's not, it is a fun game, don't get me wrong. I've picked out a few negatives throughout this video so far, but it is fun. So I guess that brings us on to the custom battles. Now, this is actually where I think I had the most fun playing the game. This goes for when it first released in early access and now as well. Again, this is where I found Mr. Blobby, so definitely not without its problems and its bugs. However, given the kind of scale of these battles, it is a lot of fun to play, and you can recreate this kind of scale in the campaign. It is less frequent. It's harder to set up, which maybe makes it a bit more rewarding, I don't know, but it's fun just to jump into a custom battle every now and again. In terms of performance then, it seemed to run very nicely now compared to how it did before. Again, I don't have any footage to show you of how it ran before, but it was terrible. I couldn't even play custom battles really. I could if I played with like 50 men on each side and dropped the graphics right down. Now I'm getting like 400, 500 troops per army on decent graphic settings, and it's running just fine, which is good. Now, the only criticism I think I have of the battles in this game, and this is for custom battles and battles in the campaign as well, is that you're never really taught the tactics and what should work and what shouldn't work. You're kind of left to figure that out for yourself, and as I mentioned earlier, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's more of just a comment on the battles as opposed to saying that it's some kind of downside or negative. It's not. It just means that it kind of blocks new players from enjoying it as much until they figure it out. And not everyone will take the time to do that. I did, because I like this kind of thing. I like historical battles, I like the tactics around it and so on. And I'm terrible at this game, but I still play it because I enjoy that kind of thing. There'll be players out there who don't enjoy that. As soon as they start losing, 5 battles in a row, well, okay, this is boring, turn it off, won't come back to it again, and then they're missing out on an absolute gem. But yeah, that'd be my only real criticism of the battles. Other than that, they're absolutely amazing. They're immersive, they're fun to play. I can't fault them other than that. So just to summarise then, I guess, first thing I should say is that while this game is much more performant now than it used to be when it first launched in early access, it's still buggy and it still has problems. That's not to say that you can't have a really great experience with this game, because I definitely am. I'm really enjoying it, but it will put some players off, and I think that's the issue that they might have, is that new players might find this game quite difficult to jump in and start playing. There's a couple of sticking points really. The tutorial's too long, too dull. There's performance issues, and the lack of any kind of tutorial around some of the deeper mechanics in the game, including the combat and the kind of overall battle tactics in these bigger battles. It means that new players are going to come in and be overwhelmed by it all. And I feel like with the style of game that this is, a third-person action game, realistically that is what it is. It's not what should be expected, I think, from a game like this. Maybe I'm wrong. I know this game is really popular. I love it. I loved Warband as well. But we want to see these franchises that we love grow. And the way to do that is to make it welcoming for new players, not off-putting. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I'm going to be making a bit more content for Bannerlord. I want to start playing it a bit more now that I know that I can run it on my system. With all that said, if you like this kind of content, you want to see more from Bannerlord, I also do Total War Let's Plays as well. If you want to see content like that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications. If you've got any comments, tips, feedback, anything you'd like to comment on with regards to this video, if you want to challenge my opinion, that's absolutely fine. Do that down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, make sure you smash that like button as well. So, I've been AsgardsChamp, and I'll see you guys on the next one.